A Polaroid photo hidden for 5 years unveils a secret Taehyung never meant for Jungkook to find until fate intervenes in the most unexpected way. "You kept this for 5 years?" Jungkook's voice cracked like shattered glass, his fingers trembling as he pulled the worn Polaroid from Taehyung's wallet. The air between them turned still, heavy, silent, except for the low hum of neon lights flickering above the empty convenience store aisle. Outside, the rain pounded against the windows like an urgent knock that refused to be ignored. Taehyung didn't answer. He couldn't. His mouth was slightly open, as if a word had almost formed but died on his lips. His eyes, those eyes Jungkook used to recognize in any crowd, were unreadable now. Shadows cast by the flickering lights danced across his face, making it hard to tell if he was afraid, ashamed, or simply stunned. Jungkook didn't blink. He looked at the photo again. The corners frayed from age, the colors softened into nostalgia. It was him, Jungkook 5 years younger, smiling wide in a too-bright sun, caught mid-laugh with his hand reaching toward the lens, taken during the last day of summer before he left Seoul, before everything changed. He remembered the moment vividly, but he never knew anyone had captured it, much less kept it, especially not Taehyung. Jungkook's hands tightened around the Polaroid, his knuckles white. "Why?" Taehyung slowly reached forward, not to grab the photo, but to close his wallet. His fingers brushed Jungkook's hand, and for a second, neither of them moved. "Don't," Taehyung finally whispered. His voice was so quiet, it almost got lost in the distant thunder outside. But Jungkook heard it, and it made everything worse. "Don't what, Taehyung? Don't ask why you've been carrying my face next to your ID like some secret you couldn't let go of?" Jungkook's heart was pounding. Not with anger, no, not entirely. It was something else, something heavier. Taehyung looked down at the floor, the worn linoleum cracked in the shape of spiderwebs beneath their shoes. "Because I couldn't forget," he said, almost too low to hear. And just like that, time folded. 5 years of silence, distance, avoidance, all collapsed into that single confession. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Jungkook had walked into that convenience store for bottled water after his late-night jog. He hadn't even known Taehyung was back in Seoul, let alone working the graveyard shift behind the counter of a convenience store that barely had working lights. He had seen the face behind the register and thought it was a trick of exhaustion, a hallucination. But then Taehyung had looked up and everything in Jungkook's body had frozen. There had been no hug, no greeting. Just a tense, breathless silence as Taehyung scanned the bottle of water and said, "Still running this late?" Something had snapped in Jungkook at that, so casually spoken, so familiar it hurt. He'd asked to borrow a pen, said he needed to write something. Taehyung had handed him the pen along with his wallet, mistaking it for his own from behind the counter. That's when Jungkook had seen the Polaroid. And now, here they were. "I thought you hated me," Jungkook said, his voice softer now, laced with disbelief. Taehyung gave a dry laugh, eyes still not meeting his. "I did, or I tried to, but I couldn't burn a memory that's still breathing." Jungkook swallowed hard. The sound of the rain grew louder. A siren wailed in the distance, fading quickly. This wasn't how reunions were supposed to happen. Not in a store that smelled faintly of expired ramen and linoleum disinfectant. Not with years of unresolved history, lurking like ghosts between snack aisles. But it was happening. Jungkook sat down slowly on the nearest crate of bottled water, staring at the photo. 5 years, he murmured. "You had this with you for 5 years, and never called." "I couldn't." "Why?" Taehyung finally looked at him. And Jungkook wished he hadn't. Because there was pain in those eyes. Real pain. The kind that doesn't fade with time, only grows quieter, like an injury that never quite healed right. "I thought you moved on," Taehyung said. "You looked happy." Jungkook gave a bitter laugh, low and hollow. "You never even gave me the chance to explain." "You didn't ove me ani. You left. So did you." Their words collided like storm fronts, quiet but electric. Silence settled again, heavier than before. Jungkook stood slowly, the photo still in his hand. "This changes things," he said. Taehyung looked away. "Does it?" Jungkook didn't answer. Not yet. He slipped the Polaroid back into Taehyung's wallet and placed it gently on the counter. His fingers lingered for a second. Then he walked toward the exit. The bell above the door jingled faintly as he stepped into the downpour. Behind him, Taehyung didn't move, didn't speak, but the photo was still warm from Jungkook's touch. And for the first time in years, Taehyung felt something he hadn't let himself feel in a long time. Hope. But hope, like memory, is dangerous when left alone for too long. And outside, as Jungkook stood under the awning, staring up into the rain, something in his chest finally cracked open. Not anger, not regret, but longing, and the impossible weight of everything that could have been if only either of them had dared to ask, why did we let it end like that? The rain hadn't stopped. It was the kind of rain that made the streets reflective like black glass, turning every neon sign into something ghostly and blurred. Jungkook didn't know how long he'd been standing outside the convenience store, the awning above doing little to keep him dry. He could still feel the weight of the Polaroid, even though he'd returned it. The image burned in his mind like an old scar split open. Behind the glass door, Taehyung hadn't moved. He stood by the register, his hands braced against the counter, knuckles white. Neither of them had expected this. Not tonight. Not like this. Jungkook turned and walked back inside. "I'm not done," he said, voice low and deliberate. Taehyung looked up, startled. There was a flicker of emotion, fear, or maybe anticipation, but it passed too quickly. "You said everything," Taehyung replied. "You can go." "No," Jungkook snapped, stepping forward. "No, I can't. Not after that." "Why now, Jungkook? Why come back tonight? What do you want from me?" Taehyung's voice was sharp now, brittle like glass under stress. Closure? Apology? Some tragic explanation to make it all make sense? Jungkook took another step forward. "I want the truth." Taehyung laughed bitterly. "Too late for that." "Taehyung, try me." A pause. A tension so thick the air itself felt charged. Then Taehyung rounded the counter and walked past him toward the back of the store. "Lock the front door," he said over his shoulder. Jungkook hesitated only a moment before obeying. Taehyung disappeared behind the employee door, and Jungkook followed. The back room was small storage shelves filled with instant noodles, paper goods, and cleaning supplies. A single bulb buzzed overhead. Taehyung leaned against the metal shelf, arms crossed. His shirt was damp from the humidity, clinging to the shape of his collarbones. There was something unguarded in his posture, but his eyes were barricaded. "I kept the photo because it was the only piece of you I had left," Taehyung said, not looking at him. "I didn't ask for it. I didn't even take it on purpose. I found it in my camera 2 days after you left." "And you couldn't call me?" Jungkook demanded. "You couldn't just say, 'Hey, I found this. I miss you.'" "You don't know what I was going through." "Then tell me." Taehyung finally looked at him, his jaw clenched. "Do you really want to know what happened that summer?" Taehyung asked, voice dropping. "The truth?" Jungkook didn't flinch. "Yes." Taehyung stepped forward until they were face to face. "You left because of your contract. Because Big Hit told you to disappear, cut ties, and pretend we never happened." "I didn't have a choice," Jungkook shouted, anger and pain bubbling to the surface. "I begged them. God, I begged them to let me tell you, to say goodbye." "But you didn't," Taehyung hissed. "You let them silence you. And you let me rot in confusion for years." Jungkook's breath was ragged now. "I thought you hated me. I saw the interviews, the way you avoided questions. I thought you moved on." "Moved on?" Taehyung's voice cracked. "Do you have any idea what that summer did to me? I was 19 and in love with someone I thought I knew. Then he vanished. No calls, no texts, just gone. I was protecting you." "Bullshit." Taehyung shoved past him, pacing now. "They threatened me too, Jungkook. After you left, I got called into meetings. They told me to forget, that you were rebranding, that the story of us didn't fit your new image." Jungkook closed his eyes. "I didn't know that." "Of course you didn't, because you never came back." "I wrote you letters," Jungkook said, his voice hollow. "Hundreds. I never sent them, but I wrote them. Every night." Taehyung turned slowly. "Then why now? Why show up 5 years later and look at me like I owe you something? Because I never stopped loving you." Silence. Jungkook's words hung in the air like a live wire. Taehyung blinked once, as if the sentence had physically struck him. "That's not fair," he said softly. "I know. I built a life without you. Taehyung whispered. Or at least I tried. But I never got answers. You left me with silence, and now you're saying you never moved on? I'm saying I couldn't. Taehyung turned away, pressing the heel of his hand against his forehead, like he was trying to keep his thoughts from unraveling. You want honesty? He said finally. Fine. After you disappeared, I tried everything to forget you. I dated people who looked nothing like you. I deleted your photos. I blocked your number, even though it never rang again. I told everyone I was fine. He looked at Jungkook again, eyes glistening. I lied. I wasn't fine. I haven't been fine since the day you left. Jungkook stepped forward. Then let's fix it. You can't fix 5 years, but I can try. Taehyung's laugh this time was guttural. What do you think this is, Jungkook? A romance drama? We don't get a neat ending. We don't get to kiss in the rain and forget everything that hurt. No, we don't, Jungkook said. But maybe we get to understand it. Maybe that's enough. There was a long, aching pause. Then Taehyung said, There's more. Jungkook frowned. More what? More than the photo. More than what they told you. He walked to the small cabinet in the corner and pulled out an envelope from beneath a stack of unused receipt rolls. The envelope was yellowed and creased. He handed it to Jungkook. What is this? Read it. Jungkook opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a photocopy of a legal document, confidentiality clauses, image rights, behavioral codes. But what caught his eye was one specific clause, highlighted in red ink. A clause forbidding romantic associations between artists under the same label, including but not limited to public or private expressions of affection, joint residency, or long-term exclusive partnerships. Jungkook felt the blood drain from his face. They made you sign this? After you left? Yes. Or they said I'd be pulled from the next comeback. Jungkook's fingers trembled. I never knew. I know. The truth was a razor, and it had cut them both for years. I didn't stop carrying the photo because it reminded me of you, Taehyung said. I kept it because it reminded me of who I was before they turned us into strangers. Jungkook looked at him, and this time he saw it. The weight, the fatigue, the hollow resilience of someone who'd learned to keep surviving even when it stopped making sense. I'm not here to destroy your life, Jungkook said. I'm not here to start something that can't survive the world we're in. Then why are you here? Because I never got to tell you I was sorry. Taehyung closed his eyes. When he opened them, something shifted. He stepped closer. I want to believe you. Then do. You hurt me. I know. I still want to kiss you. I want that too. Their words barely escaped their mouths before Taehyung pulled him in, fingers clutching at the back of Jungkook's neck, lips colliding in a kiss that wasn't gentle. It was raw. It was everything unsaid, everything repressed. A 5-year ache, finding breath for the first time. But it didn't last. Taehyung pulled away abruptly. No, he whispered, we can't. Jungkook stood there, stunned. Why? Taehyung's breath was uneven. Because they're still watching me. I'm still under contract. I'm still terrified. Then let me protect you this time. You think you can go to war with them? I'm not afraid anymore. But I am, Taehyung said, voice breaking. I've rebuilt myself too many times. I won't survive another collapse. I won't let you fall again. Their eyes locked. In that moment, the room was too small for the weight of what passed between them. Outside, the rain finally stopped. And somewhere in the silence that followed, something new began. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe for the first time, possibility. The stage lights were too bright, blinding even through the black mesh curtain behind which Jungkook waited. His in-ears buzzed with the distant roar of a crowd chanting his name in perfect synchronization. This should have been the greatest night of his career, his first solo world tour, the final night in Seoul, a sold-out dome echoing with thousands of voices. But all he could think about was Taehyung. It had been 6 months since the night of the photo. 6 months of stolen hours, locked hotel rooms, encrypted messages, burner phones. 6 months of unspoken longing folded into every touch, every look. They had tried to stay apart after that kiss, tried to bury it all again, but it didn't work. Not this time. Not with everything finally cracking beneath the weight of years of silence. The clause was still in place. The threat of exposure loomed like a blade. If the company found out, Taehyung wouldn't just lose his career. He'd be erased. Quietly, completely. Jungkook had seen it happen to others. And yet, there he was, waiting backstage, waiting for him. 2 minutes, the stage manager called. Jungkook's heart pounded. The setlist was supposed to end with his new single, a love song the label had marketed as ambiguous, universal. But the lyrics were anything but. They were Taehyung's voice, Taehyung's laugh, the way he'd fall asleep with one hand tucked under his cheek like a child. Jungkook had written it in a night and never told anyone what it was truly about. Tonight, he would tell them all. He hadn't asked Taehyung to come. He wouldn't risk it. But he'd left a backstage pass in the cafe near Taehyung's apartment, hidden beneath a dog-eared copy of Norwegian Wood, the book Taehyung always reread when he couldn't sleep. And now, he waited. A shadow moved just beyond the curtain. Jungkook turned. It was him. Taehyung stood there in black, his hood pulled low, face pale beneath the low lighting. For a second, neither of them moved. Neither spoke. Then Jungkook reached for him. "You came," he whispered. "I didn't know if I should," Taehyung replied, his voice hoarse. "I didn't know if you would." A long breath. Then, softer. "I couldn't not." They stood inches apart. No one around them noticed. The chaos of the production team, the humming monitors, the choreographers running notes, all of it fell away. Jungkook reached into his jacket and pulled something from the inner pocket. It was the Polaroid, not the original. A copy. He handed it to Taehyung. "I'm done hiding." Taehyung looked down at it, thumb brushing the edge. "If they find out..." "They already have," Jungkook said. Taehyung's eyes snapped up. Jungkook nodded slowly. "I leaked the photo myself. Last night." "What?" Taehyung whispered, stunned. Are you insane?" "I'm done lying," Jungkook said. "I've lived in fear since I was 19. I've let them control who I love, what I write, how I breathe. No more. They'll erase you. Let them try." Taehyung shook his head. "You don't understand. They'll sue you for breach. Millions. They'll blacklist you. Your endorsements, your fans. I don't care. You should. I care about you." Taehyung looked like he might cry. His lips parted, then closed again. His hand trembled. "You're not doing this alone," he said quietly. "I never was," Jungkook replied. A stagehand waved frantically. "1 minute!" Jungkook turned to go. But Taehyung caught his wrist. "Wait." He leaned in, whispered something in his ear that made Jungkook's breath catch. Then he vanished into the shadows again. Jungkook stepped onto the stage. The roar of the crowd was deafening. Light exploded in every direction. Fans held up banners, light sticks, faces soaked with emotion. He stood alone at the center of a universe that had worshipped him for years, but tonight, he wasn't their idol. He was himself. The music started. He didn't sing the song they expected. He sang the original version, unedited, uncensored. A confession wrapped in melody, raw, honest. He poured his soul into the mic, eyes closed, seeing only him. The lyrics were soft at first, then sharp like broken glass. He sang of nights waiting by the phone, of silence like betrayal, of love that refused to die no matter how deeply it was buried. The screen behind him lit up, and then, without warning, the Polaroid appeared, giant, full color, unfiltered. The crowd gasped. Jungkook kept singing. He saw it happen in real time. Shock, confusion, understanding. Some fans screamed. Some sobbed. Some looked at one another, mouths open, searching for meaning. He gave it to them in one final verse. "I kept your picture in the dark. Next to the name I couldn't say. But I won't hide behind the silence. Not one more day." The song ended. The stage went dark. And for a long moment, the entire dome was silent. Then came the sound. Applause. Louder than he'd ever heard. Screaming, crying. A tidal wave of emotion so intense it stole his breath. Jungkook stood motionless, chest heaving, overwhelmed. Then he felt it. A hand sliding into his from the wings. "Taehyung." He stepped forward. The crowd erupted. The two of them stood at the center of the stage, hand in hand, beneath the photo that had nearly broken them both. No masks, no roles, no shame. Later, they would say it was the moment everything changed, that the industry would never recover, that two idols standing in defiance of their image rights and contracts would unravel the facade that had imprisoned generations. They would be sued. The company released a statement within 24 hours. Jungkook was placed on indefinite hiatus. Taehyung's future with his group was left under review. Sponsors pulled out. News networks ran wild with speculation, scandal, outrage. But none of that mattered, because they were no longer living in shadows. In the weeks that followed, thousands marched in Seoul, Tokyo, New York, protests in support of LGBTQ, Jiawon. Artists, petitions demanding the industry evolve. Former idols came forward with their own stories. Whispers turned to roars. Something that had always been underground finally surfaced. In the quiet that followed the storm, Jungkook and Taehyung disappeared from the public eye. They rented a house in Jeju. No press, no fanfare, just them, ocean breeze, long walks,